And I think he said he might be a couple minutes late today because of something. I think he
Okay.
mentioned that last week.
Okay. You are being recorded now, so let's start our conversation. And I saw that everybody contribute an ERM, and they all look quite different. So how we are going to do this? So let's try it.
Yeah. Why don't you start first, Claudia, and just show us what you got and tell us why you did what you did.
Okay, I could do that. I have mine open actually. And let's see if I could share. I'm new at Zoom, so, but I think that I could share screen here. No, wait a second. Share screen there. Desktop, okay, desktop. Share screen. No, I don't think that. Are you seeing anything?
Not yet.
Nope.
I'm doing share screen, and then I have desktop, whiteboard, iPhone, Nurse. Okay, the Linux. Let's do that. What about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Okay, so let me. I'm trying to move. I have this ghost thing going on that it is still.
Oh.
Okay.
That's so
Now
weird.
it moves. Well, and I'm a newer computer, so, well, not necessarily newer in age, but I changed computers because it was giving me so much trouble, but it seems that it's still going on. So in my case, I was trying to, in this last version that I put yesterday or the day before, I put the PDF, and I realized today that I had put the PDF rather than the DCM. So today I put the DCM. I tried to, in the last version, to incorporate some of the things that I saw that you guys had added and try to make them a little bit more comprehensive. I did go for the full attributes because for me it makes sense. I know that we are not necessarily doing that. And I went to, on Saturday, I joined the open session class, and thinking that Melanie, you were going to join, but then I thought that I misread. I said, she asked for Sunday. So, so I was there, and we were there waiting, and then he was like, do you have questions? I said, well, I'm waiting for Melanie because I don't really understand her ERM very well, and I thought that she was going to ask. So then he said, well, why don't you, do you want to ask? So I said, okay, let me bring mine, which was not my intention. I said, I don't want to monopolize because I already been quite a few times. But he said, well, but there is no one else, so you might as well. And we are here, so we were just waiting. So actually, after the input that I got from both professor and Todd, I also tweak it a little bit to incorporate that. So basically what I have is the patient now as an entity that is having the comorbidities and the risk. I was debating between doing them here or putting them like, I don't know if you see my cursor. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was flipping them from linking into the patient or being discovered during the assessment. He thought that it was quite complicated if we do this linkage 1-to-1-to-1, and that for our sake of simplicity and cleaner presentation, it's better to have kind of the relationships a little bit more direct, even though they might be discovered during the assessment. So comorbidities and risk, I link them to the patient.
Mm-hmm.
So because there are too many relationships, they get linked into this intermediate relationship that then you have to change to make it not, well, it could be mandatory, but is a strong entity rather than a weak entity, if you will. If you recall, they were originally like this, and then it creates something intermediate. I don't know if you were playing with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to erase that. And then I saw that Ben had put in his model more of a list of, for example, the comorbidities or the risk factors, like the whole list that you had put. I think that I have an echo with someone.
You do have an echo.
Is it me? I don't think so. I'm having headsets on mic.
You're good now.
Okay, so he had put the whole list in here, and for example, the risk factors, and he had done the whole list that you had put in the entities, like age over 50, and this and the other, and weight loss or fragile or things like that. He said that doing that way is very complicated, and that's not the way that you would want to do it. And he said, well, why don't you think on a different way? So I went back to my original one, and I actually did by a code and the name. So you would have a whole list that I have them. They
Okay,
are not linked. Yeah. So they are not linked because they are not really an entity. But I am having the list so it's visual for me. So this is kind of my cheat sheet. Ben had done this way, so I had linked it this way here on the risk factors.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that's not the way that you want to do it. You want to have your list as a drop-down menu or something that they have a code and have a clean, just a description. So you are more than welcome to listen to the whole hour that we were talking about that, but that's the summary. So, and I think that now I saw that Melanie, the one that you put today, you kind of modified a few of your entities to have them linked this way as well.
Yes, I did change a couple things around in it because I did listen to almost all of your guys' office hours, and then I did the office hours last night with him.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm like I felt awkward being there. Like, okay, I guess that I'll show you mine. So you'll tell me later how it goes with yours. And then I have the provider linking to the patient via the encounter, and the same as the facility. We did discuss that maybe the facility and provider could be linked as well, or just scratching this one of the encounter being at the facility and putting that the provider belongs to a facility or affiliates with a facility. And then also I had, based on Shannon's idea of having the assessment and the test separate. Originally, I did them separate, but they were both linking in an intermediate situation. He thought that it was complicated to have assessment and test linking to one. So either I had assessments for, I think that it was the weight and the height and things like that, linked to an assessment observation, linking to the encounter, and then separate having the other type of assessments or evaluations that are more lab tests, linking through that, or putting them all together and then having a unique intermediary relationship, or entity that links them both. So I end up going for this, but I'm pro either or. And then I put the prescription and the medication similar to, I guess, that you guys have. And then I borrow from you, Melanie, the clinical recommendation linking to the intervention. And I was trying to see how I could take, things from everybody, but it's definitely not looking like yours. So I'm going to give my torch. And is this clear? Do you have any questions on mine on how they link?
No, I understand. You know what I just want to say is that when I started writing things up, I decided, and this, is a group decision, but I was thinking,
Of course.
you know what, we should just have it be at one facility, because when you start doing multiple facilities, you have to add in another associative entity. So I think we're just going to bog down are DM2 too much. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I only put it after our conversation of last week of maybe having a few facilities. If you recall, we had this conversation. I think that was the two of us and talking maybe getting it from a few facilities. So that's why I put it. And we could leave room for something else like the intervention or diagnosis or whatever it is and drop the facility altogether. We could put the address or the facility here, link to the provider, and drop it if that is the case.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking, because we're going to be adding too much.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I feel like if we weren't limited to like 15 entities, then we could potentially like look at facility. But I think you're right that if we do that at this point, that it might make it a little too detailed.
Particularly because a lot of hours are many to many, and then that forces you to put this intermediary entity.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm done with mine. Let me see if I could open, who's this? This is Melanie, right?
Yeah, why don't we can open me. Let me.
Can you see the screen? I already opened it.
Oh, I'm opening up my Toad right this second here. Let me put.
Okay.
Let me see where.
I could find channels. I think that I have it here as well.
Oh, you need to stop screen sharing.
I need to stop screen sharing.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
Stop.
Back to meeting. Hold a second. This is not it. Stop share here. Okay. Sorry, it's my second time only using. Okay, you go.
Okay. All right. Okay. So this is mine, and I was like, this is terribly jumbled when I talked to them yesterday, but they said, you know, this is just kind of how these things happen sometimes. The only recommendation they had was I didn't have this associate entity right here for the patient osteoporosis medlist and then the osteoporosis medications down here. They were talking that the patient has a diagnosis with a comorbidity, and the patient also, you discover a risk factor for patients, and patients also have test results with your encounters. So I was asking about how it all feeds into this treatment intervention, because it's three things feeding into that, and each one of these could give out the same treatment intervention. You know, like if you have a poor diet and would trigger a vitamin D supplement, or you have a test result that shows low vitamin D, then that would also trigger a vitamin D treatment intervention over here. But they said, Tone and Michael said not to worry about it so much, because later on, when we delve even deeper into this modeling, we can somehow fringe it, I think they called it, or make the database only spit out one vitamin D instead of spitting out vitamin D as a treatment intervention twice. So, you know, that's a little bit more complicated. But I think it's fairly similar, besides these pathways that all feed to treatment intervention.
Yeah, and if you saw mine, I had one under that it wasn't linked, and it was diagnosis, and I think that was that's similar to yours, because I wanted to link everything into a diagnosis and then the recommendation for treatment or intervention or whatever we are going to do, if we're going to do an intervention, or a specialist or something. So I also had that I was calling diagnosis, which was fed by three things, but I didn't put it, and I did mention that to them briefly, and I said, I don't know how to link it. It's going to get very complicated. And they said, well, try to keep it as simple as possible to start. So that's why I didn't put it, and I have it there in the bottom is floating.
Yeah, I think a diagnosis would also be a comorbidity.
Exactly, because it could be before, it could be after, depending on where you are putting it, in your thought. Definitely, if you have a comorbidity, it's because you had a diagnosis, but the diagnosis that may come from the lab results and from everything is kind of different. So how do you call it? So in a way, it's circular. And then when you do something longitudinally over years for the follow-up, you are going to have a feeding back, I don't know,
So see,
feedback
I was
somehow.
thinking the test results, these are only going to be osteoporosis tests regarding osteoporosis. So you wouldn't be discovering any other comorbidities. Like if the patient, one of the comorbidities for osteoporosis is some like different types of inflammatory bowel diseases because they can't absorb nutrients. And that generally wouldn't be discovered with the tests you would run from this osteoporosis encounter the patient's having. Is this encounter with a physician that specializes in osteoporosis, you know what I'm saying, osteoporosis.
Yes.
So it'll produce encounter test results regarding osteoporosis. Does that make sense? So we'll be
Yes, no, definitely. What I was thinking is that when they come next year, they may have something else that it is in the list of comorbidities or risk factors, but it wasn't diagnosed previously. So how do you loop them in? Maybe we said, no, just to make it simple, we don't think that is going to change. Whatever is at the very beginning, that's what they had. They cannot acquire anything else.
Oh, yeah. I see. Well, I guess each time the patient comes in that, you assess for new comorbidities and new risk factors, maybe the patient took up smoking or something.
Exactly. That's why I linked them to the visit, but he told me to take it out of the comorbidities and the risk factors and to make them easier if I link them to the patients. For me, it didn't make much sense because then you cannot have change in those ones. They are a little bit more static if they are linked to the patient and they don't have a date.
But they're linked to the encounter via the patient.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
it all links back. And that's why they said I could either choose to go with, so I have the encounter and I have orders the patient med list, or you can have a provider order patient med list.
Yeah.
But by linking encounter to here, that means I could have a different provider order the med list besides, if I linked it the other way, it could be any provider ordering the medication versus the provider that was at the encounter.
Yes. Yeah, and I also had the same thought, so that's why I linked the provider to the encounter and the med list to the encounter rather than to the provider. Yes, I agree.
So, and generally, I don't know if we could think of a situation where a provider would order a medication. I mean, sometimes providers order medications without
Thinking what they are doing.
I mean, I guess, they order a medication without seeing a patient. It's a different provider than your usual encounter provider.
Yeah.
So,
but let's go for the cleaner.
The provider orders the med list, not exactly associated with an encounter.
Yeah.
Unless we make the business rule that only the provider at the encounter can order the medication.
I think that would be the cleanest, to have a more simple model. Like the medication could come, of course they could have other medications, but the medication could come from the visit unless we put them prior, like the comorbidities could be prior. I don't know. I had my own debate there.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, like, what if, provider A sees the patient, orders the test results, and then provider A goes out of the country for a month to go visit family. So provider B takes over for provider A, and provider B sees the test results come back and goes, oh, this person's vitamin D deficient. So provider B orders the medication.
They could still potentially be, though, associated with that same encounter, right?
Could they?
Well, like if somehow, I don't know, if somehow like the doctor, like provider A passed those patients off to provider B, like when they left the country, maybe like by some convoluted mechanism, they'd technically be connected to that encounter number. If they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so is going to cover my patients while I'm gone. So the results are going to come to that person, like based on the encounter ID or whatever, potentially.
So if we listed that as like that would have to be listed as an attribute then, you think, Shannon?
I don't know. I don't know the best way to do that.
You would have to somehow have you'd have to connect the providers here somehow.
Yeah.
You probably have to form another associative relationship to link your two providers, because you can't link, they say don't do the unary, what do they call it? Unary relationship.
Oh, yeah, like the one-to-one.
Yeah, the one-to-one with it, the unary relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we just assume that our providers aren't going to go on vacation.
Yeah, I think that let's go simple there. We have many other places where to get complicated. I wouldn't get complicated at the level of the provider, as we decided that not to put too many facilities either.
Yeah. Okay.
For now, at least.
Yeah. So maybe we should just link provider with only the encounter provider. It could be a business rule. Only the encounter provider orders the medications.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the easier way to do it for sure.
Okay. Well, that's mine. Why don't you share your screen, Shannon? Let me stop. Okay. Why don't you take over? Because I didn't see yours.
I just realized I was muted. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you make it a little bit taller?
Hang
on. Okay. Well, we'll move through them. It seems that you added more from what you had, right?
I don't think so. I kind of started to name my relationships, but that was really the only thing. So I obviously haven't added like a ton of attributes in here yet. Pretty much just my keys. So I have my patient pretty central also, linking them to the patient-specific risk factors, comorbidities, and then I included complications. I guess neither of you had that on yours, but
I think that Melanie had the complications, but in a little different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we need those because we're measuring outcomes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you had like a fracture or whatever else. So I have the patient linked to those 3 things, as well as to the provider, the encounter. And then kind of similar to Melanie's, the encounter, I have generating a med list, which contains specific medications.
Yeah, I think that is exactly, the 3 of us have the same. I didn't call it a med list, but I call it something else, but it was the intermediate with the medication. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also have the encounter generating test results, measurement results. I mean, I kind of, dependent on how many attributes we end up having, like I'm not necessarily opposed to combining them like you did, Claudia.
Yeah. And again, I had them separate and then I had them together. So we'll see, the test, you did the same. The measurement, it was more immediate what happened at the visit, and the test goes to the lab, right?
Yeah, I was kind of considering the measurements like clinical observations, like weight, height, whatever else they're doing in the office, and then his test is like labs and whatnot.
Yeah, and those are very similar, or we could combine them. And Melanie, I think that you had kind of this very similar, not into two, but yes.
Yeah. And then I have my provider participating in the encounter. And then also looking at recommending or giving specific interventions, which is obviously also linked to the patient. I guess.
You need to have, because a patient can have many interventions, and many patient interventions can be associated with many patients.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that. So yeah, I think it would be like a many to many, and so it would probably kick out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of those associative, and same on the provider side for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think that the patient interventions could almost be like patient specific interventions and then have like another box over here that lists just interventions. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
that
have
makes
like a
sense.
box above or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
The problem with it is there's so many to many relationships in this thing.
Yes.
Yes. And he did say yesterday, well, the day before, so when you have the many to many that you are forced to create a new entity, it's good to try to give it a specific name if you could figure out what the name realistic is. But if you cannot, it's okay to put, like, the patient intervention would be patient underscore provider to link those names. It is okay to put as well.
Yeah. Yep. So that's my little intervention box.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Patient specific or something. Intervention.
Yeah.
And then interventions or something.
Yeah.
Okay. I like yours. I like the way you link the interventions in between the provider and the patient. But I also wonder if it should be linked to the encounter, because encounters are the things that generate the interventions, right? I mean,
Yeah. Like here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Encounters linked to the intervention. Yes,
Yeah.
directly. And that's how both the two of us had it, right? Melanie and I, we had the encounter going to the intervention.
Well, no, I don't. I have the encounter going to the risk factors or the comorbidity and then going to the intervention. So I have the
have it
risk
directly,
factor
yeah.
feed the intervention, because if you have a specific risk factor, then you have a specific intervention. So that was my thoughts, was that if you have a specific, test result, then you get a specific intervention based on the clinical guidelines. The clinical guidelines say if your vitamin D is low after you do the lab test, then the patient needs to receive vitamin D supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I went encounter test results over to interventions.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused with that, because yes, I see that the provider is going to be the one who recommends the intervention, but not directly, not if you don't have the encounter, for example. So the provider needs to go through the encounter to go to the intervention. The provider, I don't know if the provider links directly to the intervention.
Yeah, I think the encounter links directly, and the provider links to it via the encounter.
I think so.
But I do think the patient directly relinks to the specific intervention because they're receiving that intervention. They're the ones that are doing, lifestyle changes and quitting smoking and all that.
Yeah. Well, it could be that the provider is, if it is a different provider, because you are going to have the intervention probably by a different provider, then it's a different story. But the provider who recommends the intervention would go through how you have it now. Now, if you say provider that is a specialist, something like that, then I could see that they link the patient with the provider. I mean, the patient-specific intervention with the provider. I don't know. You convinced me. Otherwise, I was looking at it. I was like, well, the provider, I'm not sure if it fits directly.
Yeah. So I think like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish Ben was here so we could get his input so we can make a decision on this.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to him.
Yeah, and I don't have his. You know what? We should give each other out our phone numbers onto the
Yes.
Canvas, so that way we can text and be like, "Hey, whatever happened, I'm not going to make it," or "Hey, where are you?" And
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take a look at his very quickly? I could pull it up, but I don't know if without him presenting it.
Yeah, why don't you
Okay.
just pull it up and we can take a look, see?
I think I have it.
You have it there? Okay.
Yeah. This is his.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
So he has the medications through the provider. So this doesn't seem to be, the patient and the provider links the medications. I don't think that is a true relationship in between, right?
He needs some associative
Yeah.
entities.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
His doesn't have
Because
associative.
that's the same thing where it's going to be like a provider can prescribe multiple medications, but the medications can be for multiple providers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then the encounter and the is linking the provider and the patient. That is the same as we all have.
Mm-hmm.
Having a specialist, that would be what I was saying just now, that maybe if you have a different for the intervention,
Yeah.
to bring someone else.
A specialist? I don't. Okay.
Well, is that something
I
we
don't
really
know what he meant there, but what I was saying, the provider would link to the intervention. In my view, if you have them, a different provider may be providing it. Otherwise, it would be through the intervention, through the visit or the encounter.
Okay.
And then he has a risk factor linking to the patient, the same that we all do.
Mm-hmm.
Except this is the same thing where wouldn't this needs the associate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and then he's having the test linking to the encounter, as we all do, but missing the associate in each case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the thing that because of the professor, what he said, the test is okay, but the risk factors, he would have them from a list rather than having them all list one by one there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like the drop down list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next step?
So
now that we have several similar things, actually, not so much that is different.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the right track. I think we should go with Shannon's, and then I think we need to pull, Claudia, your drop-down menus into Shannon's.
Okay, I'll do that.
And then the next steps are because now that we have all our relationships out, we need to write our business rules based on the relationships.
Yes.
So
Shannon, can you put it up? Great. Yeah.
And then I don't know, does anybody know, are we supposed to try to keep it on like a page? Like, do I need to condense this so that it's within the dotted lines?
I don't think so, because I saw one that was going out as well, and we could try.
I just think it gets so busy looking.
Now I think, on Sunday's office hours, Crystal showed hers, and I was like, wow, yours looks really pretty. And she's like, yeah, I had to do a lot of rearranging. And when she rearranged hers, it made writing her business rules a lot easier.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah. Maybe there's, I don't know, put patient in the middle and then make everything more table-like. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Risk factors right above comorbidities and patient risk factors right above patient comorbidities, and like kind of line them up.
Yeah, that's how I had them. That was my visual as well. The only thing that I didn't have complication, but yes, I had them. Well, you are making them horizontally. I made them vertically, but that's the same. I would put more the encounter in the center than the patient, but that's, yeah, doesn't matter. Yeah, and that is visual. I don't think that we need to do that. Why don't we focus on the business rules?
So I think for the business rules, I don't know. How should we do the business rules?
Well, I was going to propose to start just saying them as they come, and I would take notes and try to post them for the group, and then we take the we said, well, we are going to go with this model. We vote 3-1, and unfortunately that's the way it is. And of course, if Ben has a very strong opinion and something else, but we kind of also discuss his, and he could listen to the conversation. I don't know what you guys think, and then start adding as we did with the entities. That's it.
Okay. Now I got to leave here at 6:30 though, so I don't know if we're going to get through all those business rules by 6:30.
No, definitely not. But maybe we could add a few, and then.
Yeah, we can add a couple, and then potentially, I mean, we could look to maybe meet again later in the week if we think that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or we could maybe get it up on a Google Doc, because I think once we get a couple of them written out, we kind of get the hang of it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I had a few that I could share if you want. So the mandatory dimensions of analysis are going to be the patient, the visit, or the encounter. I'm sorry, I call it visit, so I changed to encounter. The risk factors, comorbidity, and so we list the ones that are the main components of analysis. That presents the framework for osteoporosis natural history. Patient attributes are, and then we could go into more details but like, date of birth, name, gender, race, whatever, home members, and the ethnicity that we need to discuss if that goes or not. Primary care provider entails the provider, the care site, and our organization. If we are linking that to the facilities, link only one. Mm-hmm. And then the encounter is recorded for each visit that to a healthcare facility or encounter with the patient. Each encounter is standardized with an identifier based on the provider, the service, or I don't know if we need the service and the patient. And then I had a couple of more. A patient may share my screen for that?
Yeah. I can look at them too.
No, because I have them in another computer.
Don't worry.
But I could post them after we finish, and then we could see if those things, like, they are business rules. And then I started more in detail. A patient may experience many encounters, An encounter is generated by only one patient. An encounter is generated by at least one patient. Those are two different. So it's by only one, but at least one.
Yeah.
We could decide. An encounter is recorded for each visit to the facility. An encounter involves, we could say, at least one or just one provider. So at minimum, the person ID, provider ID, date, and well, I had put place, but that doesn't, if we are going to go for one places only. So at the minimum, the person ID, the date, the provider ID need to be available for a valid record. And we could add.
So I think your business rules, sorry to interrupt, but I think your business rules are a little bit, I'm pulling up the bariatric document, but I think they're a little bit more, your business rules are sounding a little bit more like
relations.
Constraints. Does that make sense? Like a business rule on the bariatric doc, that's why I wanted you to pull it up so I could like see it and read it. I do better reading.
Let's see. Oh, well, mine. Okay.
Here, let me pull up. Let me share my screen really quick. So here's the business. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Business rules. Each patient experiences one or more encounters with a healthcare provider. An encounter is associated with one and only one patient. So those are the business rules describe the relationships on our ERD.
And say they kind of like describe the cardinality, right?
They describe the cardinality.
Yes, and actually I put some of those that were more on the relationships. I was looking also at the document that we were supposed to read for this chapter on how they write it, the one that has a lot of tables in it. How is that called? The OMOP. Did you read that one? The OMOP. Observational Medical Outcomes Partnership Common Data Model Specifications version 4.0.
Oh, okay. I have not read that one. I've just read the chapters.
Okay. They put business rules like that. So, and I saw this one, so I was putting a mix of the two of them. And we could go with more of I thought that these are the relations which we have to define as well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we should go more with, because this right here, this bariatric doc, this is by Dr. Khan. He's the author of this. So I think the business rules expressing the cardinal, so I'm going to go expresses the cardinality of all these relationships. And I think we should just stick with that, because that OMOP one is, he said, here it is, just FYI to see the complexity of real data models.
Okay.
So he posted that just to show us how complex it could get, but I think we should probably go with, the document he made. But I think some of the things that you just said, though, however, will fit in on our constraints area.
Yeah, some of them, yes. But for example, a patient may experience many encounters. That aligns very well with the one that you said. An encounter is generated by only one patient. That also,
Yeah.
That's very similar. So I have that. An encounter is generated by at least one patient. That is the other way, is on the other side, is the cardinality.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. It's like, I feel like so many of his business rules would like work for us, but then it's like, I feel like I'm just copying.
Well, and I mean, we're all, the other groups are going to have the same, very similar business rules,
Yeah.
because you're going to have one or more encounters.
Yeah,
You know? Otherwise, you're not a patient.
Yeah.
exactly.
So, okay. Well, Claudia, why don't you post what you've got for the business rules? And we can work on the constraints also.
Okay.
I put a couple things up in the Google Doc. Did you guys see that in the conference area?
Not now. When did you do that?
I did that today.
No, I'm sorry. I left 6 a.m. and I just came for the meeting. So
I
Okay.
think I saw it. Was it just kind of your start of your document or the registry document?
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
the very beginning, and I have an email out to him because the scope is or the clinical context is so similar to what I already wrote that
Yeah.
it's like practically plagiarizing myself. But at the same time, that was I'm wondering if it's okay because that's our beginning document, and we're just kind of, it's an evolving thing.
yeah, I wonder maybe if someone else can take a step to make it looking different. Not that it's not good as it is, but maybe we could add some bibliography or add a little bit more on. I don't know what is the length that is it only one page or what is
there's no length maximum, but it's like a paragraph, clinical context, what it is and why it's important. I mean, unless I go out there and go citing all new information.
I mean, I'd wait and see what he says because, like you said, I feel like we're just building throughout the semester. So I would think it would be fine to use what you've already written for the most part. But
yeah,
I'd wait before we do anything crazy, see what he says, and then if he says for some reason we need to rewrite it, then we can.
So you already asked him this?
Yeah, I have it as a question posted to the discussion. And if he doesn't, I know he's in Washington, D.C. right now, so I'll give him a couple more days. But if he doesn't get back to me, I'll ping him on it and see what he says.
Okay.
And then I'll finish up that clinical context.
All right.
Okay.
So I don't know if I could finish tonight, but I'll try to. Maybe what I'm going to do is take as a backbone the business rules as he has them written, and then change a few words and add the ones that I have, and then I post it for everybody to start dumping things there. How does it sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good.
And I'll add your little drop down boxes, Claudia, from yours to my, and then I'll repost it to the Dropbox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, or if you, so if you want to take, are you going to start putting all the attributes? I wonder what it would be easier, because many of the ones that you have are so similar to mine already, but in a different location. So I wonder, because mine had the attributes already inside, I don't know what is easier, if to enter one by one all the attributes into yours, or try to rename mine and reposition them so they look like yours. I think that the second is easier for my point of view, but you could to differ place.
I can just what I'll do, because you have yours posted in a PDF, right?
No, I put it to. I noticed that I had put it as a PDF, the second version, so I posted just today as a DM. What is that? DM something.
DM2.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe. Yeah. Do you want to post it as a PDF, and then I'll just print it, and then I
have them as both. Oh, you want me to post it in Canvas? I put them in Dropbox at both of them.
Okay, if it's in Dropbox as both, that's fine, and I'll just print it and then I can add it. That's easy enough.
Okay. Yeah, and let me know. We said that. Yeah. Last time we said that I was going to do it, and I don't mind. If that's why I was trying to incorporate maybe I misunderstood, but that's why I was trying to incorporate everybody's into one.
Oh.
That was in the notes, but it doesn't matter if you wanna to do it yourself. That's okay. Go for it.
I think it's easy enough. And then I'll just combine it all and I'll post it, and then maybe you can take over editing from there. Does that work?
Sure.
One thing he did mention last night during the conference is that we should probably limit our attributes to about 5.
Per entity.
Yeah, per
Okay.
entity, just to kind of get the real important stuff down. He just wants to make sure we know how to model it correctly. Not
Okay.
that we're going to list out every single last attribute. Otherwise, it becomes, I forget what he said, more complicated as we move on through it. So,
Yeah.
So about 5. You know,
and I
primary
add
keys,
that.
foreign keys, and a couple other things, I guess.
I'll add that note to our document right now, just
Yeah.
to remind everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Shannon, something that I discovered last time, I don't remember who was asking if you could erase, how can you erase the relationships or things like that. So what you could do, if you have both, like for example, if you want to borrow something from Melanie, rather than entering one by one, if you like how it is done, you could position yourself, right click and copy it right there. You have both of them open, and then you paste it into yours directly.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to enter everything, one by one, as I said, particularly when you
Perfect.
attribute. So they could be easily, it's not plagiarizing it because we are giving you the permission.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's about 6:30 and I got to run.
So we're meeting next week at the same time, you guys think?
So I'm volunteering at HIMSS.
Oh yeah, you said something.
So I can't meet this early because that'll be 4:30 Pacific time.
Do you want to meet at 8 as we had originally said? Shannon, do you finish by then?
I can't guarantee that. Everybody in my group likes to talk.
Okay, but if you post it, and if we communicate over the week for the business rules and everything, maybe that's okay.
Yeah, maybe we don't need a meeting if things seem straightforward as we're posting. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we can try to kind of like limit the discussion to like comments in the Google Doc or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As long as everybody's on the same page, and if we find that we're not on the same page, then maybe try to figure out a time to meet.
Okay. So do you think that maybe I'm going to put a tentative Zoom for 8 p.m. and then we could say that maybe we don't need it?
Yeah.
Shannon, would that the 8 p.m. So the 7 p.m. would that work for you?
8 p.m. I can try to do.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, Shannon's 8 p.m. Melanie, the 7 p.m. Pacific time would work for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I'll be done.
Okay, so let's do a tentative, or 8:15 if you want, if you don't think that we'll need more than 45 minutes. And I'll put it as a tentative, and maybe we won't use it.
All right, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a nice week.
All right,
You too.
you too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.